This episode is brought to you by Progressive Commercial Insurance. Business owners, meet Progressive Insurance. They make it easy to get discounts on commercial auto insurance and find coverages to grow with your business. Quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers. Discounts and coverage selections not available in all states or situations.
Get ready for Netflix's gripping new medical drama, Pulse. Set in a cutting-edge Miami trauma center, third-year resident Dr. Danny Sims is unexpectedly thrust into a promotion when beloved chief resident Dr. Xander Phillips gets suspended. Then, with the emotional and physical stakes at their highest, a storm will push the hospital and its residents to their limits. Witness how life can change in a heartbeat when you're operating under pressure. Watch Pulse, only on Netflix.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
Man, so I've been thinking about my grandfather a lot. My grandfather passed away in 2019. The years kind of mix up for me just because I had a lot going on during that time. But like my granddad's passing, like I realized how much like I did not know. For one, about my family, how much I did not know about him. And as I continually get older, I'm making these conscious efforts to make sure, like, if the time comes for me to become a grandfather, or even right now, I'm making conscious efforts as a father to share things with my son that I can share with him as he, that are age appropriate, that move him along. But I continue to think about my grandfather because I'm like, well, if I'm blessed to get to his age and live that purposeful of a life, what will I share with my grandchildren? Because I want my grandchildren to actually feel like they know me. To feel like not just be just like a character with a few memories. Like I got a few memories with my granddad, going to the Royal Gorge in Colorado with him, because I remember at the Royal Gorge. If you've never heard of the Royal Gorge in Colorado, it is a canyon, and there is this long, and what I remember from it is this long bridge that is over a canyon. I remember looking down as a kid, and as someone who is terrified of heights, I can get in an airplane, so because I can't see underneath me. Like when I was walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, I had my I didn't have my headphones on at first. And if you've never been to the Brooklyn Bridge, I was walking across the bridge and I happened to look down. There are spaces in between the wood planks, so you can see, I think it's the East River flowing underneath you. And I'm already about halfway across before I even noticed. And I was with my friends. I was with Mike and Braden. And I was, one of my pictures on my Instagram, you see my back. You see my back, and I'm wearing like a gray pea coat, and you see the Brooklyn Bridge in front of me. This is from that moment. And I'm walking across the bridge. I look down, I see the river flowing. I said, let me grab my headphones, because I'm not doing well. So just to give you some backstory on that. So my granddad took me, and that is when I found out, like, okay, heights, I do not do well with heights, crossing that bridge from right there. But one thing that sticks with me about my grandfather is my grandfather served and retired from the Air Force. My uncle's name is Calvin Knighton, but my grandfather's name is Calvin Knighton as well, but they don't have the same middle name, so technically he's not a junior, I think. That's how that goes. So my grandfather, he when he was on his deathbed the last time I saw him, there were two moments that we had. My son and I, we took a road trip. We hopped in my truck and we drove from Odessa, Texas to Denver, Colorado. And on that drive, it was just me and my son. It was the first time. It was like in the middle of my divorce. And it's just me and how old was he at the time? 3. So it's myself and a 3-year-old. We're traveling 12 hours in the truck. He did so amazing. I still show him like little videos that I captured during that time. But we walked into the hospital room where my grandfather was, and the words that came out of his mouth, and it was the last time I saw him with his eyes open, he said, "Wow," and he shut his eyes. And to me, in reminiscing over that, I think he was saying wow in the standpoint of one, he lived long enough to see himself become a great grandfather. And for two, I think he was proud of me because he knew that my father wasn't in my life and he saw me alone with my son, bring him all the way to Colorado. The last time I talked to him, I was telling him, hey, Granddad, I'm getting ready, to drive back to Texas. I love you. And I held his hand and he said, I love you. And then he said, God bless America. And I'm like, God bless America. And it baffled me because this is a black man from East Texas. He grew up in Marshall, Texas. And he grew up in a time frame of Marshall, Texas, where within the state of Texas, Marshall had the most publicly recorded lynchings in the state. And I'm not talking about the ones that people don't know about. I'm talking about they were the county that had the most. And I'm like, this man grew up in East Texas, joined the Air Force, met his wife, had a whole family, ended up in Denver. He was born in the 30s, so he saw Jim Crow. He was a kid during World War II. My mother told me a story where a gentleman put out a cigarette in the middle of his forehead, and I need to clarify that but I told y'all anyways. If it's not true, I'll come back and clean it up. But that this black man who lived his entire life in a country that didn't necessarily wholeheartedly love him, his last things that he was saying was, God bless America. And that's the last thing that I heard my grandfather say to me. And just when I reminisce over you, man. By Far the Dopest Version is a bi-weekly podcast hosted by me, J.M. Knighton. Now, my show aims to provide insights from a male perspective on topics such as fatherhood, cultural discussions, art, and significant news events, while also sharing personal beliefs and viewpoints. My podcast seeks to foster meaningful conversation that delve into cultural and societal norms, everyday experiences, and themes that are often overlooked. Listeners can anticipate moments of laughter and tears, high energy levels, personal connections, and a love for the journey of becoming, by far, the dopest version. Nobody does it better than the Watts Podcast Network.
All power and glory go to God. All greatness is from God. When a hero stumbles, well, the cowards rejoice. Nothing feels better to a coward than to watch a brave guy fall.
Welcome to By Far the Dopest Version. Today, we're talking about legacy. I know I touched on it a little bit last episode when I was talking about Kendrick Lamar. But we're talking about the legacy of what it truly means to leave something behind, and that is something beyond material wealth. When we think of legacy, we think of what is going to be left behind to us. Like when my grandfather died, he had a house. He paid like $15,000 for this house in Denver, Colorado, not too far from downtown. And of course, if you know Denver now, the housing market is it's competitive. It's very expensive to live in Colorado. It's a different Colorado than the one in which I grew up in. It looks totally different. It feels different. I remember being a kid and being able to like drive down the street and just having like a clear shot of the mountains, like no smog, nothing. And now when I go back, I see like the cloud from the pollution. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so much has changed. And it changed during the time marijuana became legal. Of course, I left Denver when I was 11, so way before that. But it goes beyond material wealth. Money fades and objects deteriorate. But ideas, words, and art have the power to shape the world long after we're gone, right? We see that with artists all of the time, the ones who are revered post-death, within their death. And usually we've seen artists gain notoriety in their deaths. But in that, I wanted to explore how our actions, our creations, and our impact live on through family. So I had to ask myself, what is legacy? What truly is legacy? I want to talk about the difference between financial inheritance. So I'm using my grandfather as a reference point. My grandfather has 3 children. My Aunt Roz, love you very much, very, very, very much. My Uncle Calvin, and then my mother. They grew up in a very loving and complete household. I would say a little bit different from how I grew up. That's one of the things. But when my grandfather passed, he left the house to them, and we see this far too often. And I feel like in our community, where we gain something, but we immediately have to sell it. And it hurt me to the core. And the reason it hurt me was, for one, that is a house where, like, I remember running in the front yard. He had a tree, but I wasn't a tree climber. So I would like get up a little bit and be like, all right, it's dangerous. Let me get down. I don't really like doing if it's too dangerous, you can expect me to step away from it. But like going in the backyard, and he had this separate garage attachment, and there used to be this big old train set. It wasn't hooked up, but it would be the tracks, and I always wondered about it. And he had like this motorcycle over off in the corner with a tarp over it, and just the things that I see. In Colorado, we have basements. So in his basement, it used to be scary to me before he actually completed the renovation. My grandfather was very like hands-on, built things himself. He restored his basement, put carpet down there, created another room down there, put another bathroom down there. So he had done all of these things to this beautiful home right there in Park Hill. Shouts out Park Hill, right off of MLK and Hudson. I don't want to give out the address. I don't want to give out the address because there's another family living there. But right off of MLK and Hudson, where timeless memories have been created. And this is the imprint that he was leaving on the world. So it's the imprint of him telling me a few stories when before he took me to the airport one time about things that had happened in the house. It's the imprint of my mother. She shared a story with me. My mother was born in the 60s, and she told me that like down in the basement of the house, there was a TV, and she used to go down there and watch Soul Train. She would turn on Soul Train and be down there dancing and cleaning and dancing. And it broke my heart even more so now. Like, you don't get to go and revisit where you became, and where your love for music came, where your love for art came, that you no longer have access to that. And Lord willing, I'm gonna put this out there, like Lord willing, that my work serves me so well one day that I'm able to go back and buy that house and take my mother there one last time before either of us go anywhere, because I believe that's something that should completely stay within us. And as you see from right there, that story from my mother sparked a journey in my life in something in which I want to accomplish, to be able to give back to not only to her, but to my aunt and to my uncle as well, because we shouldn't have had to have been in a situation where we had to get rid of it. Of course, there are things beyond my knowledge that I don't totally know about, but I feel like, we should have been holding on to that. So someone always has a place to go to. One of the things that I definitely miss out on when I'm reminiscing over him is about the wisdom that he could have shared with me. After he had passed away, I had a dream, and my granddad had 3 vehicles. I remember the day we went with him to Chevy to buy, like, it was like a 97, 96 Camaro when they had just came out. So I remember the day we went to go get that car with him. He had a Dodge Ram. Go figure. I drive a Dodge Ram. His was gold. And then he had like this GMC van. It had like the felt little window covers, and it had the ladder on the back and the 5th wheel hitch. It had a TV in the center. Wood. It was very nice. But my granddad, as I grew older, he wouldn't let you drive his cars. Like, you wouldn't know. You weren't driving. I remember I called him one time, and he was getting older. I was in college. I didn't have a car. I was like, hey, can I buy the Camaro? He said, no. And that's how he said it, right, like that, right there to me. But in this dream, after him passing away, we were sitting in the den of his house, and there was 2 dreams. The first dream, I'll go with the first dream. The first dream, he let me drive his truck around the block, and he was in the passenger seat with me, and he trusted me enough to drive his car, and that meant a lot to me in that dream. I just went around the block with him, and he was walking with his cane, but no limp or anything like that. Like, he was fine. And then the second dream, we were sitting in the den of the house, and I asked him 3 things. I was like, what are 3 things you would tell me, like, from your 30s that you would do? And for the life of me, I can't remember the first 2, But the last one that he told me, he said I would have worked out more. And he's like, you need to get up and go work out. And I popped up from my dream, and I put my clothes on, and I went to go and work out because I really felt like he meant that. He ended up having like heart surgeries. I believe having stents placed in and things like that. Of course, died, and you know, you get older. He loves some fried okra. He loves some fried okra. But I remember that wisdom coming from him through a dream, and whether and I believe it was deeper than my mind. Just I really believe he was visiting me and talking to me, and why it got to be me, I don't know. I'll get the answer to that question one day. But in losing the information, because once you lose someone, you don't get to ask them anything else. You don't get to wonder. You just wonder what would have been, what could have been. I asked myself, what do I want my legacy to be? How do I ensure it lasts beyond me? So what do I want my legacy to be? Of course, the first thing was, oh wait, you want to be a great actor, you want to be a great artist. Yeah, but it's deeper than that. My thing is, so I have, who can I help? Who can I serve along the way? Who can I build? If I'm in building something for myself, who can I bring up with me? Because there are people who are building right now that have blessed me to include me in their journey, to hopefully to where I take advantage of my opportunities and I'm able to build and do the same thing for someone else, to continue to reach the ladder down and pull people up and give them opportunities that otherwise the world won't give you, or you won't pursue yourself. So what do I want my legacy to be? I want to help. Like I have a soft spot in my heart for like single mothers, because my mother, for the longest time before I moved with her brother, it was me and her. It was her and I. The teachers at school used to tell her, Joseph talks like he's an adult, and not in a disrespectful manner. Of course, there were times when I did say some things because my mother had said it. For example, I was in 6th grade, and I was in 6th grade. I was placed in at the school I was at. You weren't allowed to wear like the jumpsuits. So I had like the starter sweatsuit that swished, and you weren't, for whichever reason within my school district, shout out Smiley Middle School, it actually got shut down, but shout out to anybody in Denver, Colorado that went to Smiley, you weren't allowed to wear that. And so they pulled me out of class, and they're like, you got to go to ISS, in school suspension, because you are wearing this. And I said, well, my mama said y'all can't tell me what to wear until y'all buy it. And that is something that she literally said to me, and I gave it back to my teacher. And so, you know, talking like an adult, that's what I was doing. That's what I had done. So I have a soft spot in my heart for single moms, and especially for the children of single mothers who don't necessarily have a role model or anything like that. So one of the things that I would like to do, of course, is divulge my time. I think that's when I was like substitute teaching or coaching football, and really talking to the male students, whether they had a father or not, or an uncle or whoever, just making sure that I was a positive voice of reinforcement behind them and giving them knowledge and wisdom that wasn't necessarily bestowed upon me. And I think that's one of the things, how do I ensure that it lasts beyond me, is being completely genuine and giving all of myself when I'm with someone or when I'm speaking to them and pouring over them. That's why I said, I made reference to my football career a few weeks back, and how I was ashamed to speak about it. But that's why when I talk to younger students, you know, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, the athletes right around there, when they're really impressionable, that this is that I failed at this, but life continued on. But I want to give you the tools so you don't make the same mistakes. Like, I'm big on that for my son. Like, hey, I already made this mistake. I don't need you to make it too. I learned the lesson for the both of us. So I think that's how I ensure that it lasts beyond me. We have examples all around us of timeless legacies. One that comes to mind right off the bat, Michael Jackson. No matter what, no matter if you were born yesterday, at some point in time, you're going to come across Michael Jackson. That is a timeless legacy, from the Jackson 5 to him starting out his solo career, so on and so forth. He's so ingrained. I believe he was the first Super Bowl halftime show performer. if I'm not wrong, between the Bills and the Cowboys. But he set the precedent because they were talking about that during the whole thing. He was the very first performer, and he got up on he's so iconic. He got up on that stage and didn't say nothing for at least 2 minutes. At least, and people they screaming, they going crazy.
At least, when you talk about legacy and you talk about Michael Jackson, I have like this deep like connection, with his artistry. And when he went solo, which was in 1979 and Off the Wall, and I was born in the year 79, there's this connection between me and MJ that I just cannot explain to people. And when you talk about legacy, he truly left one. I personally believe in 2025 and forward, we will never see that level of artistry again. I just cannot fathom seeing that level of legacy and artistry again from album sales alone. Because that there's not really like a album sale mechanism. Everything is like streaming. From influencing countries alone. Like when he went into a country, like the country shut down. From the level of concert attendance alone. Yes, we see people doing it, but it will not be on that level again. So when you talk about a lasting impact, to your point, you could have children that's 2 and 3 years old now being introduced to him and picking up the same, excitement and, the energy that we did when, we were introduced to him. And he's been gone since 2009. Mm-hmm. So it's just very, what a beautiful example.
It's so much, there's so much truth in that. I saw a video not too long ago on Instagram of a little 2 and 3 year old doing his Michael Jackson dance and listening to the music. When I was a kid, I had a friend, his name was Lexus, and I would go and spend the night, and what we would do, he was a Michael Jackson fan. What we would do is put on performances for our mothers, as he would always say, I'm Michael and you can be Tito. I'm like, okay, it's cool, it's whatever. And we would go and put on performances to the songs because he had like a greatest hits CD. So I can attest to that myself. But he's just one example of artists and thinkers whose work has outlived them. Of course, I've made reference to this person a lot. And the reason why I make reference to this person because it's so revered to someone who I hold in very high revere, Basquiat. We see his artwork all over the place. He's in pop culture. He is in things that are new and the other and that are older. We see it from Maya Angelou, whose poetry lives on. Her unique style, her unique voice, the way she did things. One that someone asked me one time, they were like, would you ever tattoo anyone's face on you? And I was like, no, I would never tattoo anyone's face on me. I have 2 names on me and they happen to be my mother and my sister, and that's it. But they were like, okay, if there was an artist or someone that like really touched you, like who would it be? And they were like, can you give me 2 people? And I was like, okay, let me really think about this. I said, okay, I know 2 people. If I was to ever tattoo a face on me, but I'm not going to tattoo a face on me. Say that right now. And it's Anthony Bourdain. So
Why?
Anthony Bourdain, the reason why is when I was in college, let me give you both because I can explain them both with one answer.
Okay.
Why am I going blank on his name right now? Anthony Bourdain and Dhani Jones. Dhani Jones is still alive. Dhani Jones was a former NFL player, went to the University of Michigan. He's a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Anthony Bourdain, No Reservations, all of his shows. But Anthony, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping back and forth, but
That's
also
okay.
Dhani Jones on the Travel Channel from Discovery Channel,
Mm-hmm.
he had a show called Dhani Jones Tackles the Globe. So now this is where both of them tie around.
Okay.
I have a deep affinity for people that can take me around the world from my living room. So Anthony Bourdain was just so open-minded,
Yes.
and willing to sit down with anyone. I'm gonna say anyone to gain an understanding. But he did this over the course of cultural cuisine.
Yeah.
And when he went to these places, he didn't try to, make it fit him. He fit within them.
Completely.
And he would sit down with the locals and he would go on tours to places to truly understand what it is. I think when I look at the global scale of things, we lack such a lack of understanding amongst one another because we don't sit down with one another and talk. We don't sit down and break bread with anyone. We rather would drop a bomb on someone than eat a piece of bread with them in their living room,
Right.
which is a very harmful thing to do.
Yeah.
But Anthony Bourdain, he inspired me with one of his. He took a trip over to Palestine, to Israel, that area, and he actually went into the house of a couple where the gentleman, I believe he was Jewish, he was Israeli, and the wife was Muslim, she was Palestinian, and he sat down and ate with them to kind of gain a historical context about what was going on. But in all that, he took me to all of these places and showed me all of these people and was eating. It was more than the food.
Yeah.
He taught me. Dhani Jones, of course, my love of sport. His sport. What the show was, excuse me. And if I could find a streaming, oh my gosh, I will watch it. But it's not on streaming, and I think you have to order the DVD for that one. But it was only 2 seasons, which kind of broke my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched every single episode. Dhani Jones, along the same thing, he would go to other countries, Thailand, England. He went to Africa. He went to the continent of Africa. I can't remember what country he went to.
Mm-hmm.
But he would take a part. He went to Russia. He would take part in their national sport.
Okay.
So he would learn of the people through the national sport of what they were doing, and he would compete against people who had been doing this sport for years and years and years and years. And he would do damn well. He would do damn well, but it wasn't just the sport as well. He would take you around and learn the local customs, because I think you can learn a lot through people from their cultural cuisine,
Mm-hmm.
how they have discussions, and from their national sport. And so I was like, those would be 2 people whose faces I would tattoo on me because of how
you would consider.
I would consider. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Those are 2 people who I would consider, because at that age, and I still catch Anthony Bourdain reruns every now and then.
It inspired you.
It inspired me. I think I was like, I was around 18, 19, no older than 20 during those times when I was definitely watching those gentlemen.
So Anthony Bourdain completely inspired me. I feel like the world is still empty without him. I had never seen anyone profoundly look so comfortable being themselves in all these different environments. To me, he was the epitome of cool. And there's this quote that I adore by him. If it's okay, can I read it?
Please do. Tailored media and events that feed your undiscovered needs, period. The Watts Dome is an energetic hub on Patreon, inviting you to join our creative community. Members can access exclusive content, interviews, including special episodes from our top podcast, It Doesn't Work That Way, by Far the Dopest version, and Everything Hidden. Additionally, subscribers will receive invites to special live events in cities like New York, Atlanta, Miami, Dallas, and Los Angeles, as well as unique tutorials.
Empower. Claire is practicing her breathing for her upcoming yoga retreat in Bali. Has she ever done yoga before? No. But Claire worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Join our 19 million customers today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risk. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisor Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Om Namaste.
My hospital stay would have cost $25,000, but with VA healthcare, it's free.
My education would have cost $42,000, but with VA benefits, my books, tuition, and housing are all covered.
The down payment for my home would have been $74,000, but with my VA home loan, my down payment was $0. My service was then. My benefits are now. Get what you earned. Visit choose.va.gov.
Not all veterans are eligible for the type or amount of benefits mentioned here.
TaxAct knows small business owners can sometimes use a little help with their taxes. That's why TaxAct has Expert Assist, a team of live tax experts ready to answer any questions you may have. Think of them as your own personal sidekick. Not like one of those funny talking animal sidekicks, More like the super smart nerding out on tax code and business casual attire sidekick, but just as helpful and lovable. Tax Act. Let's get them over with.
You can call me the bad boy chef all you want. I'm not going to freak out about it. I'm not that bad. I'm certainly not a boy. And it's been a while since I've been a chef. He was so humble to me. And even when he would go to these different countries and have these different cuisines, even when it was something like, I'm like, ooh, Anthony, don't touch that. So he was so graciously and so eloquent. He just a gentleman. He would take it in, and he would not wouldn't make them feel some kind of way about their delicate, like the
cuisine.
thing. Yes. He was just so embracing. And then to me, he just had this natural swag about him, that he was just, to me, the epitome of cool. So I feel you when you talk about Anthony Bourdain, that hit me some kind of way.
He's very cool. I want to give our listeners just like a little bit of advice too. If you are ever in another man's country, do not offend his country's cuisine. You do not talk about a man's cuisine. And then one thing that I also read is from the teachings of Pahotep, was if someone offers you bread, to accept it and to eat with them. And also I purchased Kitchen Confidential, Adventures in Culinary Underbelly by Anthony Bourdain not too long ago, his audio book. So if you get a moment to like grab one of his books, definitely grab one of his books and take a read through it. But you see through that conversation that we just had, how their influence continues to shape culture, how the thought and the creativity that they had and that they gave us, that they left us with, continues to shape us. So leading into that, we talk about what role does art, music, and literature play in shaping legacies? It is a major part of it. If Basquiat didn't believe in his art, if Maya Angelou didn't believe in her poetry, if Anthony Bourdain didn't believe in what he was doing as starting out as a chef and then taking us with him around the world and showing us different parts of cuisine, if they didn't believe in themselves, what they ultimately left us wouldn't be here. But it shaped their legacy, that in their death, that we revere them and that we miss them and that we still speak about them as if they are alive. So I'm thinking about what am I doing now that contributes to my legacy? I continue to take classes. I read books. I write. What you don't see is me at the house driving myself, not crazy, but like acting out things and playing with different emotions and how I look, how I hold my body, how I walk as a character, how I talk as a character, where I hold my anger, me learning those things about myself. I want people to ultimately remember my work, my words, and my impact as being something that was intentional, that was insightful for them. I hope to be able to do what Anthony Bourdain and Dahani Jones have done for me, and that's take me around the world, to take me places. I want to ultimately give that back to someone who is sitting in their living room or, watching from a computer at work or wherever it may be. I want to be able to transform people's reality around them to where they're totally involved in the world in which they see through my art form. That is how I want people to remember my work. And I touched on my small daily actions that I do to contribute to the bigger picture, which is that continued practice and refinement, that practice and refinement, that practice and refinement. It's not an easy thing to do. It's easier to not do it. It's easier to be able to just be like, you know what? Ain't nobody around. I'm gonna put this down for right now, and then I'll pick it back up. No. Keep it in your hand. Keep going. Keep working on your legacy. That painting that you got right now that has 3 likes on Instagram, keep painting. That poem that you have right now that doesn't have a lot of views or hasn't been read a lot, keep writing. Remember the question that I asked you all, would you be willing to do it for one person? So make sure your actions align to continually contribute to something bigger, right? Literature, music, and visual art outlive their creators. It is proof of your existence. There's 100% proof of your existence. When we go back and we think of our brother Chadwick Boseman, we can go and look at his filmography category. We listen to the stories about him when he was at Howard. We hear about him on stage. We witness and see these things, especially in Black Panther. I feel like that's probably a lot of people's where they recognize him the most from, just because of the way Marvel is set up. But his legacy was so great that in Black Panther 2, they had to write a scene where they gave him a funeral. They honored his real life in a fictional world. That's how great and how much he impacted. We see it in the examples of poetry and stories that have influenced generations through remakes, through original material that is inspired by. That is the reality of the impact that art can have on someone when they reminisce over you. When they reminisce over you, whether it be art or, like I made mention of my grandfather at the top of the episode, through his actions or just the wonder and reminiscing over him. So, in the final exhibit, there are 3 things I want you to take away from this episode, right? 1, legacy is built daily. The things we do now determine how we're remembered. 2, it's bigger than wealth. What we leave behind should be more than material. Leave more than you take. Leave more than you take. Lastly, impact is unseen until it lasts. The best legacies are felt for generations. Michael Jackson, Basquiat, Anthony Bourdain, Chadwick Boseman, just to name a few. Spike Lee, Ryan Coogler is going to be one of those people. Michael B. Jordan, Denzel Washington. Legacies are felt for generations, right? So, I want to encourage you to think about your own impact. I want you to think about what you want your legacy to be in whatever it is you want it to be in. What you leave for your kids, or what you leave for your brother, your sister, or just for the world in totality. Think about your own impact. That's what I need from you. Also, I need you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Go to Also, I need you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Go to wattsproductions.com/podcast and tell me what you reminisce over. What do you think about that continually inspires you and drives you forward, all right? What's adding to you so you leave your own impact? I want to know these things. I tell you every single episode. This is our show, my day ones. Thank you so much for continuing to listen as we grow through this auditory journey. I appreciate y'all so much. Be mindful of what you reminisce over. Leave an impact so people reminisce over you. Peace. We out.